Well, good evening. I know that for some of you, it may not be evening. It might be afternoon, might be morning, because we have people calling in from all over. I saw a few of you from Australia. Welcome. Some of you are hailing from the UK. Welcome. It is good to have you all. Do me a favor. Just make sure that my audio is coming through well. My guest and I have been spending the last little bit of time frantically making sure that things were working well. So just give me a thumbs up or a comment in the chat to let me know if the audio is coming through well. Man, we have got a fun one this evening. As we get started, and before I bring my guest on, do me a favor. Will you let someone know that this is going on? Will you do like a share or send it to someone or hit like, subscribe, like do all that stuff? I'm not very good at self-promotion, so I'm kind of relying on y'all to promote this to other people. So it is good to have you all. Now, I'm going to jump straight in, okay? I'm going to invite my guest on. I'm excited to have not only a friend, but a brother in Christ. And man, he's been busy. Some have been wondering where he's been. Well, there he is, Ryan Day.
Hey, what's up?
Man, it is good to see you, my friend. It is great to see you. How is life?
Man, I'm blessed as can be, bro.
Yeah.
Can't complain. This is the first live stream internet online type program I've done in a while. So it's good to be back and just having some good open discussion about things that we're passionate about.
I love that. I know you've been busy. I know things, but I just have to say publicly, thank you. Those of you that have never done a live stream before, inevitably at some point, the audio, the video, the whatever goes crazy. And if it wasn't for Ryan and his skills with audio, we'd be having double audio going on. So he solved the problem, and I am so grateful for you, my friend. I'm so grateful.
You bet, man. Absolutely. Anytime.
Well, let's kind of jump in. Those of you that are here, you probably saw the kind of the infograph on the YouTube channel. We're here to respond to, who's this Ty Gibson guy? We're here to respond to Ty Gibson, and I doubt that he will ever respond to us because, quite frankly, Mike Colburn, I don't know about you, but Mike Colburn is nothing to Ty Gibson. But yeah, you were going to say something.
No, I think more or less that this particular video was, it was sent to me about 2 or 3 weeks ago. Just for a little bit of background and context here, based on what I've been able to find and search so far, I think this particular video, we're not going to be obviously watching the whole video. I think the whole thing's like an hour and a half, hour and 25 minutes, something like that. But it's actually, we're going to be looking at certain clips tonight and responding to a few clips from a presentation that Ty Gibson gave back at the end. I think it was literally like the last week of October. And of course, the video that was circulating that was eventually shared with me by multiple people was sent to me from YouTube. And I think the particular channel that shared it somewhere around the second week of November. So I guess it had been edited and whatnot. And the people that were posting this video were finally posting it a couple of weeks after Ty had actually presented this. And so what we're going to be watching is a clip or a few clips, and responding to those clips, segments of his presentation that he gave to, I believe it was a series of leaders, pastors, in a particular, I don't know if it was a conference or whatnot. But he shared a lot of very interesting things. And so I had several people send me the video and say, hey, what's your thoughts? What do you think about this? And, I'm going to be sharing a lot of things, responding to a lot of what he's saying, in agreement with him, because I think there's a lot of what he's saying that's spot on and absolutely, I agree with what he's saying. And then there's some things in terms of his conclusions that obviously I don't agree with. And I think you and Mike, or me and you, Mike's going to be sharing some thoughts throughout the program in response to those clips. So I'm sure many of you have probably seen this by now. Some of you maybe have not seen it. I encourage you to watch the full thing start to finish, because I certainly don't want Ty Gibson or anyone for that matter reaching out to me and saying, "Oh, you guys just took me out of context, and we're going to be responding to certain clips." Yeah, but we do encourage you to go watch the full thing, so you'll see that we're not really manipulating anything that he's saying here. We're just responding to a few segments throughout his presentation. So, yeah, Mike, however you want to go from here, man, I'm ready to go.
Yeah, so I think in the actual comments of the video, those of you that haven't seen it yet, there will be a full link. So if you can watch the whole thing, that would be great. I always tell people I never like to be taken out of context. And so in no way, shape, or form are we trying to do that today. I want to make sure that we keep this in context. But what I do want to just preface and maybe talk through a little bit, because in some of my previous interactions with Adventist leaders, I'm always a little hesitant to engage in responding, because the tendency for an Adventist is either the Peter Dixon, that's not my Adventism, or it's something like, well, yeah, but they don't speak for, or well, yeah, those are scholars, and scholars can be wrong. That's not the way I see it. It's that type of thing. And so I want to initially just say, who is Ty? Like, I think maybe we should address that.
Sure.
And does he have the mouthpiece to express Adventism? Like, I think that's maybe something we should address before we dive into the video itself.
Yeah, so back in the mid to late 80s, I believe it was, and I don't know the specific year, but Ty Gibson and James Rafferty kind of co-started or co-began Lightbearers Ministries. And so they're still, obviously, Lightbearers is kind of a staple in the church. They've kind of started out years ago, I think it was more or less of like a publishing type, just into publishing. And then, of course, as technology has picked up over the years, you're starting to see a whole lot more of Ty Gibson. Of course, when James Rafferty was with them, and then Rosario. And of course, I think towards the mid 2000s or so, David Ashrick ended up joining them. David's baby, I think, was kind of the Arise School. And so what they did is they took the Arise Evangelistic Training School, or Bible Worker Training School, however you want to call it, and they kind of married the two together. And so David Ashrick ended up joining Ty Gibson and James Rafferty with that years ago. Now it's kind of I guess you could say a Ty Gibson, David Ashrick ministry, although there's other pieces there. I'm not going to speak for them, because that's not what I'm here to do. But Ty Gibson is if you don't know who Ty Gibson is in Adventism, then you're just not aware. You're not paying attention, because Ty Gibson is one of the more popular, very well-known speakers in the church, very intelligent guy. Again, I have nothing personally against the guy. I have disagreements with him. I have my own perspective, as I'm sure he would disagree with me and you, Mike. But I think he's a sincere guy. I've learned a lot from him over the years, and him and David both were some of my favorite ministers. I've only met him once. It was years ago at a 3ABN camp meeting, just for like maybe 2 or 3 minutes in the green room backstage. He probably don't even remember me. But I remember shaking his hand, saying, "Hey, brother, appreciate your ministry," that kind of thing. But yeah, just to be very frank and clear, Ty Gibson is no just backwoods, back in the sticks, common, person, lay person. He is a voice in the church. He's a very well-known, very rooted and grounded in Adventism, very aware of Adventism. His name is up there with speakers like, Mark Finley and Doug Batchelor and, some of these very, very well-known, prominent, very influential speakers. And so the message that we're about to hear from him is one coming from, I think he means well. I think he's very sincere. The fact that he's brave enough to say some of the things that he's going to say in just a few moments that we're going to hear. I mean,
Yeah.
I applaud him, because I'm like, at least someone other than me and others, because I'm going to share with you in just a few moments that I actually shared very similar information just like this in a sermon at the Thompsonville Seventh-day Adventist Church back in 2019. And of course, it didn't make big TV, and that was when I was kind of starting out. People were starting to get to know me. But again, it didn't come from a Ty Gibson or a David Asterisk. But now that Ty is speaking, this thing has spread, and so I'm thankful that and very grateful that he's willing to step up and speak about some of the difficult things. Now, where I'm going to disagree with him, I'm sure as you are as well, is his conclusions on things, and the where he ends up landing that plane. I think we differ strongly, and I'm going to share that in a little while.
Yeah. So think of, we've said this before. Think of Adventism. Adventism is on a kind of different. There's different levels of Adventism, and so today we're not going to be engaging in like systematic theology of Adventism. We're not going to be like doing academic scholarly engagement. But we're also not going to be engaging, I would say, on the other side of the spectrum of Ty Gibson, you're going to have like a Stephen Bohr, who is a very, Stephen Bohr, and I've responded to one of his videos before. Stephen Bohr sits on the very extreme fundamentalist, we got to get back to our roots. Ellen White is everything. He's going to be that side of Adventism. And Ty Gibson, who has been labeled many things, he's probably more of a progressive. Maybe I don't like the term liberal because that just means all kinds of different things.
Right.
Someone like Answering Adventism will label him as like a neo-Adventist. Okay. I just want you to understand, and I don't like labeling people. I just want you to understand that Ty Gibson sits on the far end of the fundamentalists.
Yeah,
okay?
for sure.
And whether or not this is going to cause, we'll see whether or not this type of stuff is going to cause a schism in the church. I don't know. But what we're about to go through is, I think, a legitimate concern from Ty Gibson, who has a heart for what he understands as the gospel, but is playing in the sandbox of a theology that doesn't really know what the gospel is. So with that caveat, you ready for the first video?
I'm ready. Let's dive into it.
Now, I will say this as we dive into this. Okay, I'm going to put on the I'm going to put the video clip number so you all know, and then I'm also going to put the timestamps, because those of you that want to know where, you'll be able to go directly to exactly where this is later on. Those of you that are watching, if you want to go watch this on the full video. So here we go with hopefully audio works well, but here we go with the first video clip.
I want to talk to you about that one move, because here's the situation. We, as Seventh-day Adventists, maybe not all of us are Seventh-day Adventists. I think most of us are Seventh-day Adventists. But as a denomination, we're in a predicament. We have an emergency on our hands, a missional emergency and an evangelistic emergency. I would even say, even at a deeper level, a theological emergency. We're in trouble as a denomination. Now, if you're gallivanting along as a preacher, as a pastor, as an evangelist, as some kind of conference head honcho, and you're just kind of, going along through life like, everything's groovy, everything's fine, we're killing it, we're amazing, we're the remnant church, man, and we got this. Well, you and I, we need to process some information.
We're amazing. We got this.
I love his humor. Gallivanting along. And you know what he's bringing out there, I think is a legitimate thing. I think there's a lot. Like for instance, one of the people that shared this video with me also shared a clip of, and I'm not even going to say this guy's name, because I'm not even going to get him 2 seconds of airtime or any attention, because I know he'll probably make a video next week and be like, "Oh, Ryan Day, he said my name, and he talked. I'm not even going to say his name, but anyways, there was another very popular ultra conservative podcast that did a response to this as well, and again, Ty Gibson in this particular clip we just watched is highlighting the fact that there is a large number of Seventh-day Adventists that have watched his sermon. And that is exactly their response. Like, oh, you know what? Hey, there's nothing wrong here. There's nothing. We're totally cool. We're staying with the ship. The ship is just cruising along. And hey, we're the remnant. Everything is fine and dandy. Nothing to see here. Just keep moving on. We're just going to continue to be us and do our thing and keep finishing the work and being that special elite remnant people that God has called us to be. And I like the fact that at least Ty is able to acknowledge, and which in the next clip, he's going to tell why he's speaking up, because he sees that there's a responsibility on the part of the leaders to do so. But I appreciate the fact that he's willing to speak up and say, look, if you think that everything's okay, you're not snapped into reality, because reality is telling a different story. The numbers are telling a different story. Anyone with half sense who's paying attention and observing what is going on, and is obviously, in my case, very well traveled, and has been into hundreds of Adventist churches and all across the nation and the world, you pick up on patterns, you pick up on things, and you start to realize, you know what is being said over here and what I'm observing and seeing are two different things. And so that's what he's mentioning here, and I appreciate the fact that he's highlighting that.
Yeah, so he, I mean, obviously we've got some comments here, like, this is the true, remnant red flag. We're the remnant, which in and of itself is theologically problematic, but it does already come into the equation. Like, Ty is very clearly identifying that the Adventist church at its core does seem to believe that they are the thing, that they are it. Now he's going to kind of try to shake them a little bit, and it's going to be interesting. Some people are probably going to be like, "Oh, Ty is the shaking." Like, you get all this weird shaking theology.
Like, everyone go out. He's going to be shaken out.
I preferred it stirred and not shaken, but that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
Thing. But so yeah, I would agree with his entrance in this, and an Adventist watching, which I hope we have some. I would encourage you to pay very close attention to what this man is saying, and yeah, I'll kind of leave it at that.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, video clip 2. As we get into this, here we go.
All right.
I want to begin with a premise from Max Dupre. Max Dupre was a leadership guru for corporate America. And he woke up one day and put those glasses on purpose. Amen. And then he said, I'm going to say something. And here's what he said. He said the first job of the leader is to define reality. I mean, this is self-evident, isn't it? Leaders can't be liars. Leaders have to face the music. Leaders have to confront reality. This is the first job of the leader, and everybody in this room is a leader. If you're a preacher, if you're a pastor, if you're an evangelist, if you're a conference employee, you're a leader. Now, I would go a step further and say that every human being is, by definition, a leader over whatever sphere of influence you happen to have. But this is a pastor's conference. This is a preacher's conference, and we have a responsibility to define reality in our context as Seventh-day Adventist pastors, evangelists, preachers, leaders. We have a responsibility to tell ourselves the truth. So I hope you're not, weak in the knees right now. I hope you got some sleep, because we're going to have to tell ourselves some brutal things right now. in order to just survive against our own extinction, because that's where we're headed as a denomination.
Okay. I really appreciate the fact here that he's kind of throwing out the gauntlet here and saying, okay, leaders, and he's speaking to pastors.
Yeah.
You know, we can no longer hide from this. We can no longer sit on the sidelines again, you know, kind of like he said, gallivanting through, you know, daisies and sunshine, birds chirping, and hey, everything's okay. There's nothing to see here. Everything's okay. I think as he said, the responsibility of a good leader is someone who is always in check with reality, always in touch with reality, and able to deliver that reality check when needed. And I think that's kind of, in my opinion, what separates the elite leaders from the posers. You know, there's a lot of leaders out there, but they're not willing to do what Ty is doing in this message here, which is saying, "Hey, let's talk about the difficult things. Let's do a reality check here, and let's not pretend. Let's have that difficult discussion, because as he said, and I'm using his words, we're on the brink of extinction." And I said that actually back in 2019 when I was a fully devoted, 100% all in Seventh-day Adventist. I delivered a message to the Thompsonville Seventh-day Adventist Church, and actually on 3ABN a few years later, 2 or 3 years later, called Euthanasia, Youth, Euthanasia, where I was basically bringing about the statistics that were available at that time, which he's going to present some new updated statistics in just a moment. But the statistics that were available at that time, I was looking over them, and I'm looking at them, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, if Jesus doesn't come back in the next 30 to 50 years, there's not going to be an Adventist church. And so the fact that he's able to use that word extinction, that coming from obviously a highly respected, very influential Seventh-day Adventist leader, I respect that, because he's absolutely correct. The data is showing that if there's not a change soon in some capacity, it's not looking good for the Seventh-day Adventist organization and institution. So yeah, kudos to him.
So there were a couple things in the clip. I think I know what he meant. He said leaders aren't liars. That's not actually true. I think he meant we as leaders shouldn't
can't be liars. Is that what he said?
Yeah, I think he said leaders can't be liars.
Yeah.
And the reality is I can tell you lots of leaders that have lied to a lot of people and led people down the wrong path. Now, I think his premise here was we need to tell ourselves the truth.
Right.
I think that's what he's trying to get to. And for an Adventist watching or watching at a different time, I think Adventists sitting in the pews of the Adventist churches need to wake up. And instead of kind of taking the normal, yeah, this is the shaking, or the normal, well, I just heard all of our numbers, we're doing really good. I had a conversation with my dad, and he was like, well, Mike, didn't you hear all the thousands of people that was getting baptized in this obscure continent over here? And I'm like, Dad,
oh man,
you're oblivious. Like you're oblivious to, and I want to here. I'm going to grab this book real quick, because this is exactly what I keep thinking. Like you're either like Adventist, you got to stop being, this is an Adventist book, by the way. You got to stop putting your head in the sand. You're going to have to be a canary. Like you're going to have to. You can't be an ostrich and just put your head in the sand and say everything's fine, because it's not.
Yeah.
All right. Let's get into the next one here.
All right. Here comes the data.
Ooh, pay attention. Get those notes out. Get that. Is it data or data?
Data. Who cares?
I don't know.
It's one or the other. Do it.
Do it.
Well, the median age of a Seventh-day Adventist right now in North America is 51 years old. And we're aging as a denomination. Every year that goes by, the median age goes up. Also, on any given Sabbath in North America, church attendance is defined by approximately 4% young adult attendance. 4%. Only 4%. By the way, all the data I'm sharing with you at this juncture is from the General Conference website. The guy with the long hair, pleasant fellow with the English accent, what's his name? Yeah, the guy who did all that research, David Trem. So all of this is on the GC website. So 4% of attendees on any given Sabbath are young adults. They're essentially gone. Mm-hmm. They're missing. And here's why, because the next number is very fascinating. It's a large spread, but necessarily so. We lose between 50 and 70% of everyone we baptize. Even those that we have as a captive audience that go through our educational system. Right? Only 3 or 4 out of 10 who are educated through the Seventh-day Adventist educational system remain Seventh-day Adventists. Only 1 out of 10 who don't go through our schools. So our schools are important to the general configuration. I mean, if it wasn't for our schools, we are only keeping 1 out of 10 young adults. Essentially, people grow up in the Seventh-day Adventist church and leave. That's our reality. I have a friend named Pastor Chad Stewart who pastors at the Spencerville Seventh-day Adventist Church near the General Conference. And he stood up one Sabbath in order to make the point, and he introduced a large choir of 46 young people who were about to sing a song. And he said, by the time these 46 young people composing this choir that was about to sing the special music, get the feeling, Sabbath morning, we're going to have a special music. Look at all those young people up there. They're adorable. And they're about to sing a song. And he has 32 of them will no longer be Seventh-day Adventists by the time they're done with college. Enjoy the song. Then he sat down. And he sat down.
That's tough. That's tough. Yeah, so the data actually has changed since the last time I did my research, which was several years ago. It's gotten worse. It's not gotten any better. So no one can say, things are going to get better. That's not what the data is showing. It's on a downward spiral and quickly. And, I just find it interesting. The median age is 51, as he brought out. Only 4% of young adult attendance. Now, this is absolutely the case. Having been to hundreds of Adventist churches over the last 14, 15 years, I can tell you 99% of the churches I walk into, and I've said this before publicly, again, not trying to be disrespectful, just telling you as I saw it, as I observed it, nearly every church I walk into, you can stand in the back of the room and you can see whitehead, 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 3-year-old, whitehead, 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 10-year-old. And again, I'm speaking for majority of churches. Obviously, when you get into the larger inner city churches and the more larger metropolitan areas of Adventism, that's where you're going to see a larger percentage of younger, teenagers and young adults. But even at those churches, the median age is drastically older than younger. And so on nearly every smaller to medium-sized church that I have attended over the years or visited, every single one of them, if we did a Q&A or if we did some kind of evangelistic training or whatever we were doing, then one of the number one questions we got, how do we get the young people interested in the Lord, and how do we keep them coming back? And I remember this one particular church wanted to bring me in It's actually not too far from you, Mike. In fact, I could tell you the name of the church and you'd be like, yep, been there, done that, know who they are. Not too far from you in Arkansas. But this particular church,
you're not going to name them, right?
I'm not going to name them. I'm going to save them. I'm going to save them. But I remember they called me up. The pastor called me. He's like, hey, man, we want you to come do an evangelistic series. Again, this was like 3 years ago. And he's like, but we want to hold this meeting at the local, we want to hold it at the local university. This was University of Arkansas. Again, they have like, I don't know, 20, 30,000 students, something like that. Huge, massive university. And they're like, we want you to hold these set of meetings at the university. We want you to make the meetings and devise them, create them so to be attractive to that audience, because our goal is to reach the college students, the young adults. And we want to bring them to the church. We want to get our youth active, and we want our church to grow, and we want our church to be a staple in this community. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. But as I began to talk with them about how, I'm willing to totally formulate a plan, totally willing to do what is necessary, make it absolutely more Christ-centered, more gospel-centered, less doctrinally. And when I started using that word, less doctrine, well, we still want the truth preached. We still want the doctrine. I'm like, okay. Again, still, I was a very, very devoted Adventist then. So I'm like, okay, y'all still get the message in there that's expected of me. But at the end of the day, I asked them, I said, okay, so what happens? I come to this particular place and I hold these meetings, and let's say we have, I don't know, I'm going to throw out a number here. Let's say we have 20 converts. That's like, hey, I'm ready to start attending this local church. Let's say we got that. Then what? And they're like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, you want them to come back to grandma's church. And no disrespect. I'm not trying to disrespect the elderly people here. But your church is reflective of grandma's church. There's certain aspects about how things are run here, how things are done, your ultra-conservative approach, and of course your lack of really keeping it gospel-centered and Christ-centered. It's going to, focusing back on those doctrines and constantly, and then the hymns, and, we don't want any drums and we don't want any modern, I started naming all of these different elements. I said, it's just going to be a matter of time before they all fall off the way and you lose all of those people. So if you want me to make changes to my series, to accommodate these young people, what changes are you going to make to also accommodate these young people to keep them coming? There was no response. They told me they would get back with me, and they never did. They gave up on it because they saw that, oh, no, we want him to come in and get them here, but we don't want to do anything to keep them here. That's essentially nearly every Seventh-day Adventist church. And by the way, I'm not even going to throw Adventist under the bus here. There's a whole lot of other denominational churches from different that are having these same issues, trying to relate to young people and trying to keep the youth. But I'm speaking specifically to Adventism because that's what Ty is addressing here. Yeah. The numbers are showing 4%. Yeah. That is insane. They're virtually not there.
It's interesting to me, Ryan, that so right around the corner from said, and I only know this, you didn't say who the church was, but because this particular church I'm going to reference is in the same vicinity as the Arkansas University. I've got a professor, I'm getting my master's right now, and one of the classes that I can take is actually taught. I just got finished with it. It's a Gospels class by one of the PhD professors that actually is one of the pastors to a church down there that's close to the university. And in our conversation with the gospel, we kind of devolved into this discussion about what made the gospel like spread like wildfire. Like, obviously the diaspora, when it just began to just like go crazy, there was no Adventist 28 fundamental beliefs.
Yeah.
There was no Presbyterian beliefs. There was no Lutheran beliefs. There was no, you just put whatever, it doesn't matter what denomination. Yeah. There was none of that. Mm-hmm. It was the pure, unadulterated gospel.
Mhm.
And that is summed up in the person of Jesus Christ.
Right.
And what made it move so much is the reality of the simplicity, but yet the awe of what it was that Jesus, his life, death, and resurrection actually did
Mhm.
for all of humanity.
Right.
And part of, and I can even see it in some of the chats. We've got some Adventists here, I can tell. And I'm glad you're here. The gospel is not doctrines, friends. The gospel is not the Adventist 28 fundamental beliefs. If you think that, that's part of the reason why the Adventist church is dying.
Yeah.
And they will die on the vine.
Yeah.
They will, because they have effectively severed themselves from the gospel.
Mhm.
They have their own Adventist gospel, but
Mhm.
there's a reason why, 30 to 40% of all individuals that go through even the Adventist education system.
Mhm.
Friends, I'm one of the 60, 70%. I
Yeah.
was born, raised, taught, educated in the Adventist system.
Mhm.
And I am proud to say I am absolutely not an Adventist,
Mhm.
and will never go back ever. Adventists always like to think, oh, pray that you'll come back. No,
Yeah.
I have no desire to come
Yeah.
back because it has no life.
Yeah. I've never met anyone, me personally, I'm not saying that there aren't people in reality, but I think I've never met anyone who desired to be gone from prison, who got out and then immediately wanted to go back. Yes, there's certain obviously situations where people need to be fed and want housing, and so they'll do things just to get back into the system for those purposes. But truly and genuinely, a person who wants freedom, leave a prison and then say, you know what, I think I'd rather go back to that prison. And so for me, it's definitely the case. But staying on point here with what Ty is bringing about with this data, it is absolutely clear there's a major, traveling as a full-time evangelist. I saw this. The 50 to 70% of those people who fall out, calling back and talking to the pastors months, down the line and saying, hey, how's everyone doing? We might have baptized 10, 15, 6, however many there were, and only to call back and find out that maybe one or two of them is still there and the rest of them is gone. It's like, well, what happened? Well, they just, things happen in their life and they just never came back. And I'm like, after a while, you start to see that. You start to see it over and over and observe, and it's like, wait, something's not right here. If this is God's remnant church, and we have the true gospel, we have the true message, we should not be seeing a trajectory downward spiral of losing people, but rather, if the true gospel of Jesus that I'm reading about in my Bible truly does transform, and I know it does, right? I've felt it, I've experienced it, then why aren't we seeing that happening in the Seventh-day Adventist Church? It's because the Seventh-day Adventist Church is not gospel-centric. It's not Christ-centric. And that's essentially the conclusion that Ty's going to come to in a few moments, is that we're not preaching the gospel. We're not focusing on Christ. We've got our attention on all of these other things. And while I agree with him on that aspect, I'm going to share with you later in the program where I disagree with him in his conclusions. But I do agree with him in the sense that he's ultimately going to land on the fact that we're not preaching the gospel. We're not staying focused on Christ and the gospel and Jesus uplifted. We're so focused on all of these other external doctrinal, and we want to institutionalize people. We want to bring about conformity into our doctrinal institutional system, but we're not into true gospel transformation because, there's too many of these exterior things that we're worried about rather than focused on what really matters. And so I think that's obviously that is the case. You see it in the young people. The young people, it's not that they're not interested in spiritual things. I have met thousands of young people that have attended Adventist church, that no longer attend it, that I've talked to personally, that have said, hey, you know what? I love Jesus. I want to know Christ. I want to attend a church. I can't go there. I can't go there. It's so boring. It's so dead. It's so dry. There's too much of this going on and that going on, and so much focus on this and this and this and this, and not enough on Christ and the gospel. And so
it's a cop-out, and this is just my personal experience, okay? I've heard the same exact thing. It's a cop-out for an Adventist to claim, well, the same is true in other churches.
Yeah.
Because friends, I have been fully involved in both the music studies. I've been meeting with the pastors. I've been teaching some of the leaders at the church that we're attending how to use biblical tools to like Logos. Like I've been fully engaged, and my kids and my family have never met more people that have been on fire, have studied, have been actively involved in like meeting with each other and studying and becoming better Christ followers. I've never met more people. So don't fall into this lie that the Adventist church is telling you that, oh, no. The reason why that church is growing is because they're worshiping Satan. They're following, they're Sunday worshipers, and that's the reason why they're growing. No, friends, that's a lie. That's
silly. Yeah, right now, my wife and I have attended a few online services of some of the more well-known and prominent churches here in our area. And it's just amazing to see, nearly half these churches are young people.
Yeah.
And you hear them give their testimonies, you see them worship, you observe. Again, I'm not speaking because I know these people's personal lives, but you observe and you see that it doesn't appear that there's acting. It doesn't appear that there's something genuine going on there. And you don't see that that genuine, worshipful, passionate about the gospel, passionate about the relationship with God. That element in the Seventh-day Adventist church is prominent. No, it's nearly not there at all. I mean, the only way you're ever going to see any young people at all practically in the Adventist church is if you go to a GYC. And even if you go to a GYC at the end of the year, you're getting some some weird obscured version that's not a reality in like 98% of the churches you're going to attend across America.
No.
And so it's just not there. And so what Ty is bringing out in that previous clip is spot on. I totally agree with what he's saying, and the data is absolutely backing it up.
So we're going to watch now, guys. This is going to be almost it's going to be over a 4-minute clip. Okay, because we're going to really be looking at the data and the numbers. And I need those that are maybe just joining to realize that these are numbers that are coming from the GC. This is not, Ty's going to explain this as we go through this. So wake up. The numbers are not what you think they are, first of all, as we get into this. So here's the next video clip.
For us as a people, we say we have 22 million members worldwide. This is the number that we speak and applaud ourselves with. Now, I just want to say something about this number. First of all, were you at the General Conference session recently? We like this number. We dig this number. This is our number. We're so happy with this number. Let me just tell you the truth. This number sucks. This number is not a good number. It's just as high as we could fudge the numbers in order to make ourselves feel good. So it's the highest number we can speak, and then we speak it with pride, right? There are 22 million Seventh-day Adventists. We're the fastest growing Protestant denomination in the world. In parentheses, let me point out that all evangelical Protestant churches are in the throes of death in Western civilization. All of them. We're not unique in this regard, although we have our unique version. I had a sign in my garage for years that I found at a junk store. I don't know what happened to it. We moved and I lost it. It said, "I am my own version of the universal confusion." So we should never think that, Adventists are particularly problematic on planet Earth. When people say, the Baptists, ... the Adventists, ... and, file a complaint. The fact is we're humans. So we're just our own version of the universal confusion. Our particular version of the universal confusion is a little weird in our own Adventist way of being weird, the same way the problems in every other group of humans is weird in their own kind of way. We are humans, and so the problem is really a human problem, but we have our own Adventist version of the problem, And that's what I want to explore with you because it needs to be addressed. The fact is, if there are 22 million Seventh-day Adventists worldwide, this is an abysmal number with 8 billion plus humans on the planet. Most people on planet Earth have never heard of us. We don't figure into anybody's equations. Nobody is asking our opinion about anything. When conversations are had on the stage of the world politics and economics and art, we don't figure in. Nobody's curious about what we think because most people don't even know that we exist as a denomination. So 22 million is not a large number. It's not. Elon Musk has more followers than the Seventh-day Adventist Church. The fact is, we are not a significant force to be reckoned with. Now, hold that in your mind for a moment. Hold that in your mind for a moment, parallel to the claims that we make. That we're about to give the loud cry. The whole earth is about to be lightened with the glory of what we have to say. And it's going to be global, and everybody's going to encounter what Adventists have to say. I don't know. So here's the thing. That David Trim guy, I got on the phone with him about a year ago, and I said, hey, so I want to read everything you have on this website, but it's a lot. Could you just tell me the truth of the situation? Okay, so we say 22 million. Is that how many we had? He said, nah. He said, back at that time, he said, we have about 6 million worldwide. Because not only do we write down everybody's name that we baptize in mass baptisms around the world, so that's the number that we're giving, right? But we also keep attendance. We have this thing that local churches do where like once a quarter or we count all the people present. Okay, so he says, actually there's about 6 million. And then recently I talked with him and he said, I think maybe attendance has been rising a little bit. And so let's say 10 million. So we say there's 22 million of us. Really, there's only about 6 to 10 million Seventh-day Adventists that are present and accounted for. And then when you have the 6 to 10 million, that simply means those are the ones that are showing up. Now, if you're a pastor, you know that, if you count all those showing up, if you have a congregation of 50 or 100 or 500 or 5,000, whatever it is, you know that of those who are actually showing up, what's the percentage of them that are actually engaged? A lot of them are just showing up out of a sense of, it's what you do. It's my culture. I'm a Seventh-day Adventist. My grandmother would freak out if I wasn't going to church, so I go. Right? There's a lot of people who are just in it because it's my tribe. It's cultural. I just go because that's what I do. And if I'm single, there might be some hot chick there. So I need to go. I need to go to church. These are the factors that are involved. So of the 6 to 10 million, you get the picture, right?
There's a chick there. I gotta go.
So I did the math, and I don't even know if I did the math right, but I think I'm in the ballpark at least. And you people you absolutely can check me on this math. If I'm wrong, please correct me. But I think if I did the math correctly, if you take around, because he's saying 6 to 10, so I went 6 million. What percentage of 6 million, or what percentage of 8 billion is 6 million? And I'm showing less than 1%.
A very, 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 very small percentage.
I'm showing like way like 7/10 of a, like barely over 7/10 of a percentage. Like it's way less than 1%. And I could be wrong. So please, if I'm botching that math, and there's a possibility I am, but I think I'm at least in a ballpark that it's less than 1% of the entire world's population. And yet this church makes the claim, as he's saying, like, we're the remnant. We're gonna go finish the work. We're gonna make the loud cry. And you're just not seeing that. You're not seeing that. We can even boast, we had 500,000 baptisms last week in Papua New Guinea or whatever it is, wherever country they've been recently. And it's like, yeah, but the data is showing that 50 to 70% of those are going to be gone rather quickly. I think just looking at the data alone, and I think Ty did a wonderful job of presenting this based on, again, we're basing this on the SDA official General Conference Archives and Statistics website where you can find this data. It's not looking good, and so it makes you question remnant.
So I don't know if this is what you got, but 6 million is 0.075%.
That's what I got. Yes. Yeah. That's what I got. So I did the math right.
And I really want people to hear this, because initially I know there are Adventists out there that are going to be like, well, we're the remnant. It's the small number. Like they're going to use something to justify where they're at. The thing I want you to hear, if you're an Adventist and you got that in your mind, in the Adventist theology, the only way Jesus comes is when every single one of the 8 billion hear the Adventist message.
Mm-hmm.
So you better get ready to get ready. Like you better keep, like, you're not working hard. This is the problem with the, yes, there's more people leaving than we realize. Like, only 30-40% remain. The rest of them are leaving. Yes, you can sit there and say, well, they're apostatizing, or, they're leaving the faith. Well, yeah, they're leaving Adventism, but they're not leaving Christ. And that's the part that, we're going to probably differ on when we get to the conversation through what Ty is saying. But this is a pretty stark, dismal, very dark number. Like, and here's what I will also say, Ryan. I firmly disagree with one thing he did say in there.
Okay.
And when he was talking about, like, well, we're not the only ones, like, most people, if as a pastor, there's a certain number that just show up. Clearly Ty has not been, he really hasn't been to other churches.
Yeah, no.
Because we have the other problem. But our problem is we can't find enough seats.
Yeah. No, I was going to say that. I think that's why I said, when he said that, if you heard me, I said it depends. Yeah. There are certain very traditional denominations, for instance, Church of Christ, certain very ultra conservative, more traditional church denominations that you can find these type of numbers, or at least a downward spiral in the numbers. But I'm telling you right now, based on what you just said, and I've observed it also, and that is, you go into a lot of these non-denominational churches, Pentecostal churches, some of the larger mainstream Protestant churches like Baptist churches, you're going to find a totally different. These churches are growing. I
was just going to say, a lot, at least in my experience, a lot of the churches that are getting back to liturgical worship. I saw someone earlier say, like, Orthodox Christianity is exploding. Anglican is exploding right now. And it seems to be this desire to go back to again, think about what I said about the gospel. Like, it's not the 28 fundamental beliefs. That's not the gospel, friends. Like, if you think it is, you are very confused. Yeah. You've been brainwashed. That's not what the gospel is. Okay. But when we get back to the simplicity of who Christ is and what he's done for us, the true gospel, that's when you begin to see churches growing. And that is Ty's argument. That will be his argument as he goes into
premise. He's going to land there.
Yep.
All right, but we're getting into some of these further clips here that I definitely can't wait to get to, because this is where I'm going to start. Maybe not in this direct next one, but as we get into further down the road here, I'm going to start sharing some things that I think where me and Ty, and I think you as well, Mike, are going to differ on Ty on when it comes to the conclusion. So go ahead.
All right, here we go with the next clip.
Our twofold corporate lie as a people runs something like this, like a mantra. We have the truth and we're finishing the work. No, we don't, and no, we're not. No, we don't, and no, we're not. Now, you can parse this with me. You can say, no, Ty, we do have the truth. By which we mean we have a list of doctrines that are provable from Scripture from an apologetic standpoint. And yet Scripture would define the truth much more beautifully and magnificently than that. There is the truth, lowercase t, and there's the truth, uppercase T, and that's Jesus and the entire constellation of realities that emerge from him, and those would be incarnation, life, teachings, death, resurrection, ascension to the right hand of the Father. Let's just call that for shorthand the Christ event. We're not theologically out of line by identifying it singularly as an event. This is what Paul does in Romans chapter 5. He says, by one man's righteous act, singular. Jesus is an event, singular, in history that has occurred. So everything that pertains to him, that emerges from him, is a single act, according to Paul, that redeemed humanity corporately, universally, saved the world. Okay, so to say we have the truth is not an accurate statement if what we mean is we have the verses to prove that Saturday's the right day and Sunday's the wrong day. We have the verses to prove that when you die, you're really dead. We have the truth. The second coming is not a secret rapture, and we can prove it. We have the truth. That doesn't really qualify as having the truth. That qualifies as having some factual data that has potential. It has potential, let's say. It has the potential to contribute to the uppercase truth, that is the revelation of the beauty of God's character in the person of Christ. Okay, let's make no mistake about it. We have been called to communicate the gospel. It's called the Gospel Commission. The Gospel Commission. And this will become more clear. And as far as finishing the work, I mean, we're behind. That's an understatement. We're have some catching up to do.
So much. So that clip there, man, it is again, just echoing some of the stuff that he said before, but yeah, this twofold lie that we have the truth and we're finishing the work. I mean, that was one of the things that I questioned the most in the last 3 years that I was an Adventist. I'm looking at it and I'm like, this is the reality of what we're saying. What we're saying and the reality of what's actually happening is two different things. And even though, I think that's the whole, and I'm going to get into a little bit of psychology here. I'm not a psychologist, and I don't claim to be a psychologist, so I'm probably going to botch this up. But I think that's what really is fascinating to me is, I guess, if you tell yourself something, you hear it said over and over behind the pulpit in small group Bible studies, online, in certain sermons you're hearing, and you hear this enough from your little circle of influence. And in this case, for most people, it's their local Seventh-day Adventist church or, their favorite Seventh-day Adventist minister that they're hearing either through 3ABN or Amazing Facts or what other program or podcast they're listening to. You hear that enough, someone just hammering that, we have the truth. We have the truth. We're going to finish the work. It's funny because I said I wasn't going to say this guy's name, and I'm not going to say his name, but you could probably guess just based off what I'm about to say or how I'm going to say it. But one of the videos that someone sent me was a very popular, he's become a little more popular podcaster in the past couple years or so. But he was responding to Ty's video. He literally showed 40 minutes of Ty's presentation, and the last 5 or 6 minutes of his video is him responding to it and saying, friends, the SDA church has the truth. Friends, we have the truth. It's like you're not winning any arguments with that, bro.
No.
Like you just you saying that doesn't make it true.
No.
And so, yeah, I think every church has some truth. And I'm certainly not denying that the SDA church does teach some truth, just like every other denomination or group out there probably teaches some version of the truth. But I would argue the SDA church does not have the full gospel. They don't even know what the full gospel is. We're going to talk about that in a little bit more. And when it comes to finishing the work, as he said in the clip, we're so far behind, that's an understatement. The SDA church is not even making a scratch, not even a dent in finishing any work. The only work they're finishing is on themselves. The only work they're finishing is on themselves. And they're finishing off themselves with each and every passing month and passing year that goes by because the church is in extinction mode. So if you're finishing any work at all, you're finishing off yourself. And as he says, you're basically committing a slow suicide, a homicide, but a suicide, however you want to look at it. It's not certainly finishing the gospel work.
Yeah. So I want to point out in the video clip, some of you probably caught it. He talked about like capital truth and lowercase truth. Part of the problem, I agree, I disagree. I don't really know where to land with this because truth can't have any fallacy to it. Like if it's truth, it's truth. Many Adventists are taught to believe that the gospel equals, they might put Jesus in there somewhere, but then it equals the Adventist church with equals the 28 fundamental beliefs. And that's the truth, whether you put a capital or not. I have heard some crazy things. I've heard some people say Jesus was an Adventist. I've heard some people say crazy things like the worst. I sent you this clip today. The worst people in hell. This is from an Adventist pastor. Yeah. The worst people in hell won't be Hitler. It'll be former Adventists.
Yeah.
That is, friends, that comes from the mindset, from the worldview, from the perspective of a narcissistic theological framework that believes they have everything. No one else has anything. And this whole premise, like, those of you watching their Adventists, friends, the truth is not doctrinal. It's not the Adventist doctrinal teachings. The truth is Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
He is the way and the truth. That is it. That's it. Yeah. Don't extrapolate. And this is part of the problem, I think, in Adventism, is don't extrapolate from there that, well, since we have Jesus, now everything that we say and everything that our false prophetess says, yes, I believe Ellen White is a false prophetess. Everything. No, we have all truth. That's the reason why Adventism is, it's not just slow bleeding. They are committing theological suicide because they don't have the truth, but they have convinced themselves by saying the little lowercase t. Oh, we have the lowercase t.
Just think about those numbers in general, Mike. If the median age right now is 51 and the average person lives anywhere between, let's just throw it out there and say the data showing anywhere between 70 and 80 years old, then what I've said holds true. If Jesus doesn't come back in the next 30 years, the Adventist church is going to be non-existent because the data showing that you're barely retaining 4% or less of your youth. And if they're supposed to be the church of tomorrow and you're only able to hold barely 4% of them, where's the church going to be in 20 years, 30 years? Something's wrong. You can't look at that and say, oh, but we're the remnant. Everything's just great. Again, like whole gallivanting. Everything's great. Let's say hold hands and sing Kumbaya because, we're the remnant. No, something's off. Something's off. And you got to acknowledge that.
Well, it's unfortunately, it's spiritual poverty. It's maybe even spiritual arrogance, I would say. Friends, this is not about, and this is what I have been so refreshed coming out of Adventism, is the gospel is not converting people to a denomination. The gospel is introducing people to their Savior, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
That's the gospel. It's not, and it's the reason why, and this is something that's really hard for Adventists to understand. There are first tier issues in theology. Like when I say first tier, I'm saying things like, if you don't believe that Jesus is the Savior of the world, you're not a Christian. Okay.
It's like a little problematic.
You cannot claim to be a Christian and think that Muhammad saved you, or, Joe Schmo or whatever. Like, there are first tier issues, and then there are second, third, fourth things that, yes, churches disagree on. Yes, they do. But they don't disagree on the unity of Christ.
Right. And I think maybe that was what Ty might have been referencing by the little T, big T thing. Meaning maybe he was relating the big T being to Christ and the gospel versus little t being these other doctrinal subjects that might not fall into the same intensive category as the gospel and Christ. But either way, I mean, the major point that he's making here is that it's not looking good. It's not looking good. We've got to snap into reality as an Adventist church, Adventist Christians. If you're out there and you're listening to this, your man is calling it out, and I so far up to this point I'm like check, yes, I get it, I see it, it makes total sense. Much of what he is saying, I opened my eyes to 2 or 3 years ago and started seeing this stuff that led me down the path that I was in terms of searching, researching, and digging into history, digging into Adventist history, digging into our doctrines deeper on a much more scholarly level than I ever had before, because I want to test, I want to put it to the test and make sure I've not missed something. And of course, by taking that extra deep dive into these things helped me go to that closet in the back of the room that many people don't want to open. And you open it up, you look in there and you go, did I just see that? Is that really there? That can't be right. And so, it leads you down a path of going, wait a second, this isn't right. And I think obviously Ty would not take that position that I just stated. He would disagree with me, but so far what he said in these clips, I think he's spot on in terms of the conclusion of the state of Adventism and where it's headed.
In part of the state, and we're going to go to the next clip here, but I think personally, part of the reason Adventism has gotten where it is and will continue, and I think Ty would possibly agree with me on this, it will continue on the trajectory it is if Adventists continue to conflate doctrines like the Sabbath, that's the truth, or the three angels' messages, that's the truth, or the investigative judgment, that's the truth. I think what Ty is getting at is, yes, we have some unique things that, yes, we need to be, in his mind, probably proud of, but we shouldn't conflate that being Christ-centered.
Yeah.
Now, the problem, and we're going to get to this, the problem is that I don't think that you can divorce the two.
Yeah.
I don't think that you can take the unique doctrines out of Adventism. I don't think you can say, listen, as long as you believe in Christ, it's okay if you disagree about Sabbath. It's okay if you disagree with. Now, in other Christian churches, they will say that. It's okay. You don't have to accept the rapture.
Yeah.
Like I attend a church right now, okay? I attend a church that is dispensational. I'm not dispensational.
Right.
Okay. Right. Many of the pastors there are not.
Yeah.
But their kind of core framework, okay, is, but they'll say, you know what? It's not like, it is what it is. Like,
it's not a deal breaker.
It's not a deal breaker. No.
It's not life or death, right?
But
we're Adventists will argue that it is.
Right. And you can't do that in Adventism with the state of the dead. You can't do that with their sanctuary doctrine. You can't do it with investigate. Like, you can't. And so while I agree, I think, with Ty. I don't think where he lands eventually. I don't
Yeah.
think that you can separate those.
Right. No, I agree with that for sure.
All right, we're going to go to video number 6. And just so you guys know, we've got 10 tonight. So we are halfway through. But we're going to go to video number 6 here.
We need to stop saying this kind of stuff to ourselves, and we need to get on our knees, preferably on our faces before God, and say, we have botched this. Would you please help us to see clearly? Because the fact is that we are committing a slow, protracted suicide as a denomination, and we imagine, as a self-preservation technique, that it's not a suicide, it's a homicide. We think the world is killing us. We think that, it's all becoming secular and social media, and how can you ever win anybody to Jesus with TikTok? It's all so attractive and alluring, and okay, Jesus is more attractive and more alluring. The problem is we haven't tried him yet.
Boom.
We haven't tried him yet. We haven't actually put forth Christ in all his magnificence to our audience. And if we did, we would find the audience growing.
Yeah.
Necessarily. Because people, you remember in the previous message, I said we specialize in persuasion. Arguments toward persuasion. We need to begin specializing in beauty toward attraction. You don't have to, if a beautiful song is playing, you don't have to say to people, listen to it. Listen to this. No, if you hear a beautiful song, people are going, it's spontaneous, it's voluntary, you're leaning in. Nobody has to tell you to do it. If something is delicious on a plate in front of you, you don't need to say, eat it. You just, give me a fork, man. I'm going to eat this thing right now because it's spontaneous. The gospel has to look like that.
He says, we haven't tried Jesus. Oh, man, that is true. That is true. And I will say, I'm going to kind of use an analogy here. Have you ever met someone that at first glance, or at least in the initial meet, you were attracted to physically, but then the more you get to know that person, you find out just how ugly they are?
Yeah.
The world is full of those kind of people. I'll be honest with you, but early on, I got to know some girls. This was before my wife, but know some girls, beautiful, gorgeous women, but you spend some time around them, get to know them, and their attitude, some of the things that they would, just horrific, ugly. No matter how much makeup, Botox, hairspray, name brand clothing you slap on that exterior, it's never going to change the interior.
Yep.
You can take the pig out of the pigsty, dust it off, throw some water on it, give it a bath, paint it up, put some lipstick on that pig, but it's still going to be a pig. It's still going to be a nasty, unclean animal. And so the point I'm getting at in this analogy is that while there are good people in Adventism, and again, while I'm saying these things, I know your hardcore Adventists are just appalled by what I'm saying. Like, oh, he's saying we're ugly, and he's comparing us to a pig, and please understand what's happening here. I love my Adventist friends and my Adventist people, but at the same time, you have to understand the system. And this next clip we're going to watch in a moment, this is the one I'm really waiting to get to. It's a longer clip, but what he's about to say in this next clip when we get there is really the meat that I want to hone in on, because it's the system that has been allowed to take on life that has existed for for more than a century now, that you can have these evangelistic meetings. You can paint Adventism to look this certain way with words and phrases and elegant, analogies and, wonderful little illustrations and, to try to make it. But the longer you stay in it, especially if you're tapped into reality, the more you start to realize just how ugly it is on the inside. And again, I'm not trying to throw, stones at individual people here. I'm saying the culture, the theological framework, everything in it does not necessarily point to Christ. It doesn't uplift the gospel. It leads you down this road of inner just backbiting and fighting and contention and confusion. And ultimately, there's a whole lot of people that are dealing with some heavy mental illness in the Adventist church because of the ultra spiritually narcissistic flavor and just everything they're dealing with on a weekly basis, dealing with, the fear of not knowing if they're going to make it, the fear of not knowing, there's so many elements that come together. So the point I'm getting at is hearing Ty say this, and ultimately he's going to land on the conclusion in just a moment, is we just need to preach the gospel and everything will be fine. But actually what he's about to say in the next clip we're going to get to in a moment is really the key to understanding the ultimate issue with Adventism. And until you really comprehend what's going on there, you're never going to be able to find a solution, because there is no solution with the current framework that you have. You can't just bring in this gospel package and think, oh, let's just replace this with this and put some wallpaper up and some new paint and make the outside look a little better and throw up some palm trees and everything will look so much better and we'll be better down the road. That's not how this works when the foundation is messed up. And so I'll get to that in just a moment, but I'll let you respond, brother, and then I'm anxious to get to this next clip.
Something that you said earlier. I mean, I know that for a little while there, you were inundated when you came out of, your interaction with ReABN, and I know that you have seen a lot of the backbiting, a lot of the critique, a lot of the, the horrific things that get said. And I understand that for some people that are maybe watching right now, maybe you wouldn't engage that way. I get that. Okay. And I want to be very clear that I'm not saying, nor is Ryan saying, that everyone in Adventism does that. This is not a blanketed statement. Okay?
Right. Yeah.
But culture, theological culture, drives the overall response. So while there have been some people in the Adventist church that are still Adventists that have been kind and loving to me in my exit out.
Yeah, same
the
here.
Vast majority of people that choose to engage with me have primarily been combative, number one, okay? They have been defensive. They have been taught and trained that you now have to demand that they're wrong, that Mike's wrong. He doesn't have it right. He's left the truth. He's left the, they get very combative. And they ultimately, I have had people tell me that I'm a spawn of Satan. I've had people tell me that I'm the son of Satan. I've had people tell me that, that there's no way I could be saved. I've had people tell me things like, I hope you eventually come back so that Jesus can save you. I've had like all. Now, is that everyone? No, it's not, friends. Okay. But predominantly the people that speak out towards me, it isn't a response of, I'd like to understand. It isn't from let me value someone else who is a brother in Christ. Which, by the way, I've had lots of conversations with Lutherans, Methodists, Baptists, Presbyterians. I don't agree with everything they say. They haven't been combative towards me. And that's the point I want people to understand is Adventism ingrains in you. It is a part of the Adventist construct and DNA.
Yeah.
That if you are not Adventist, you must be converted to Adventism. If you have left Adventism, you're worse than if you didn't hear it yet.
Mm-hmm.
And brother, you need to come back because now you know the truth and now you're worse. That is not Christ-centric. And it's not, and that I think that's part of it. It's Adventism attracts people who are wired to prove others wrong.
Yeah.
It's a spiritual narcissism. So as we get into some of this, and I mean, you've probably seen it in some of the chat. We've got people here in the chat. All they want to do is they want to prove that everyone here is wrong.
Yeah.
And I'm asking you to just pause for a second and ask yourself, why are you acting that way? Why can you not engage? If we're brothers in Christ, sisters in Christ, why can't we have a conversation?
Yeah, it's sad, man. It's really sad.
You ready for 7?
Yeah, let's do this next one.
Did you plan 7 to be like, this is a number of completion? Did you plan?
No, I didn't
7?
actually plan it that way. But this next clip to me really starts to hone in on the major issue.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
All right, let's make this happen.
Frankenstein is instructive here. She began writing this when she was 18 years old, and it was published when she was 20. Now, we think it's a horror novel. It's kind of horrific, but really she was aiming for something else. She was aiming to communicate a pretty deep sociological truth, and it's this, that human beings tend to create systems that become autonomous on their own, take on a life of their own, and then the humans that created the system lose control of it and spend the rest of the story trying to kill it. Trying to kill the thing that we realize, we shouldn't have created that. Adventism has created and normalized an approach to what we call soul winning or evangelism. We've normalized a system that in our sober moments we know doesn't work, but we keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results, which is Einstein's definition of insanity, you'll remember. And Einstein went on to say, didn't he, that no problem can be solved at the same level at which it was created. Right? You can't solve, Adventism cannot solve its current missional crisis by doing the same thing over and over and over again, right? You can't mail out enough books to enough zip codes. You can't put up enough billboards along freeways. You can't actually produce a different effect from the same methodology.
Yeah.
We're dealing with a systems failure. Think about it this way. If you have a factory, systems theory says this, that every system is perfectly designed to produce its outcomes. So all you have to do is engineer the thing backwards. If a system is producing something, the machine is designed to produce what you're getting at the end of the conveyor belt. You know, if you don't want Hostess Twinkies, if you don't want cupcakes, if you want a tofu quinoa salad, you can't get a tofu quinoa salad out of a Twinkie machine. You need a different machine. You need a different system to produce a different result. Right? You can't stand at the end of the conveyor belt wishing that you could get yourself a tofu quinoa salad out of a Twinkie machine. The fact is you need to completely re-engineer the system. The whole thing needs to be torn to the ground. You might be able to use some of the parts.
Nope.
Right? But you have to reconstruct. Mary Shelley's genius was that she essentially said that human beings can create systems that take on a life of their own and then are producing destructive results, but you can't kill it because it's now a system that in some sense we're dependent on. Now you got 401k plans and retirement packages and health insurance and properties to be maintained. And you got this denominational entity that has in it necessarily, this isn't a criticism of this denomination or any denomination, this is a description of sociological reality. This is human. It's not particularly Adventist. The moment you have a system that must be maintained, there is a self-preserving mechanism that kicks in.
Yeah.
And the only way to change the outcomes is with revolution.
Oh.
All right. Okay, so if you don't mind, I have a slide. I just have a slide presentation I want to share at this point.
Yeah.
But before I do, I want to say this. He said, if you based on the concept of systems, if you want to really understand why it's producing what it is, just re-engineer it backwards. Go all the way back to the beginning and figure out why it's producing what it's producing. He could not have said it any better, because it's absolutely spot on. The problem is that what he's ultimately going to, and even though he said you got to tear it down and you got to rebuild it back up, ultimately the conclusion that most Adventists come to is, well, like he said, let's just keep some of the parts. And by some of the parts, they mean, well, let's just keep the same foundation. We might make some renovations.
We got to keep those 7 pillars.
Okay, what we'll do is we'll go and strip out some of the sheetrock. We might throw on some new paint, some new wallpaper. We might make some exterior and interior changes, but for the most part, we can still use the same foundation. We can still use some of the old parts. We just got to do a little bit of reconstruction, a little bit of renovation, a little bit of overhaul, and everything will be better down the road, because now we're going to implement a different system. The problem is that you can't implement a new system with the same beginning programming, with the same foundation you started with. That's the problem. So I want to show you something here. Let me
while you go ahead and put your present. I know that you got to present it on the bottom, and then I can add it to the stream. So yeah, you notice that he said, like, once a system is created, then it's a self-preservation of that system. So my response to Ty would be, you're right. What's the system?
Yeah. Because
if the system is built on what Christ has, if it's the gospel, if it's his system, then we don't have to, like, God's got it. Like, it's not like we have to do anything to, like, preserve. It's his will, it's his direction, it's his plan. We can be a part of that. We can walk into it. But my question is Ty, have we created an entirely different system? I mean, that's really where it's at. It looks like we'll get Ryan back here.
Sorry.
So that's okay. You trying to figure out how to screen share?
No, I'm figuring it out. It just messed me up for a moment there.
It's all good. So I mean, that's the biggest thing is kind of to your point. We can't reverse engineer this.
Yeah.
We can't say, oh, we're going to keep the Sabbath thing. We're going to keep the investigative judgment thing. We're going to keep all this and then tear everything else down and build it.
Yeah.
You've got to go back to the gospel. If you're going to build this thing, you got to rip out the foundation and you got to build it from the ground up the way God intended it.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that's kind of what I wanted to establish here before we get into any of these other things down here. Just want to show a couple of slides and I'll come back to some others later. But first of all, this is what he said. Can you guys see my screen?
It's still not up, dude.
Is it not?
No, hit the present. Bear with us, guys. Hit the present
Sorry.
down there, and then just do another screen share. It'll pop up saying
Yep,
it's there, and
yep,
then I can add it.
Let me see here. Let me go to window. And then
By the way, while you're doing that, shout out to Dexter. Thank you for the super chat. Those of you that do want to support the ministry, you're welcome to use the super chat feature. If there's questions, welcome to ask those, and we can share those. Also, don't hesitate to scan the QR code in the corner. It's technically up in. I have to point to the opposite corner for me.
Yeah.
But it's sitting over top of Ryan there on his left shoulder. Scan that code.
Can you see my screen now? Is it?
It's still not up, man.
That is strange because I
Still
just
not
did
up.
the same thing you and I did before we. That is the strangest thing because I did screen share.
By the way, Dexter's asking if we can do a Christmas concert.
Sure.
I still need to figure out. I need to get a hold of.
What about now? Can you see my screen now?
No.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on, man.
You should be able to hit the present and then hit. Well, let me do this. Let me stop my screen share and then you hit share screen, and then it should bring up some prompts.
What about now?
Nope.
Because it says I'm sharing it right now. Streamshare.com is sharing a window.
It is not sharing a window.
Oh man, I had a nice graphic to show too. That stinks.
Hey, can you while we're talking, you want to email it to me and I'll pull it up on my end?
Yeah, let me see if I can do that. Yeah,
While
I
you
was
do
gonna
that.
do it in pieces. So yeah, go ahead, man. I'm gonna try to get this email to you really quickly.
Yeah. So I'm seeing some let's see. Yeah, so by the way, thank you, Schlaze. I think that you're spot on. I mean, I think we do have to go back to the beginning. And honestly, I think that's partly why so many Christians that have been raised in certain denominations are going back to more liturgical kind of roots, because I think there is a deep desire to go back to our historical Christianity roots, not historical Adventism roots. I'm talking about like historical Christianity, back to the apostles, back to that side of things. And I do think that I would encourage all of us to study more of that, because that's our roots. We need to be aware of things like the creeds. You may not agree with all of them, but I will say this: if you don't know what the Apostles' Creed is, you may not really know what a Christian is.
So I just sent it to you. Okay. So while you're looking that up, I just want to say the fact that I'm gonna set this up really quickly because of the whole systems thing he just brought up, and it's absolutely essential to understand this. The problem that I see with this whole thing, he's going to land on the right conclusion, which is we need the gospel. Okay, that's inevitable. That's clear. The real gospel is what the Adventist church, and not just the Adventist church, many other churches are really lacking. But definitely the Adventist church, because the Adventist church has its own little separate, isolated, like their own little appendage group way out here. We're the remnant. We're God's. We've got the spirit of prophecy. We're the elite of the elite, and all the other people just need to come to us because we have the truth. But they're lacking the true gospel, which is why we're seeing the data and the stuff that we're seeing. But it absolutely does speak to the fact that while you need the gospel, and while the Adventist church is lacking the gospel, you can preach that gospel until you're blue in the face to individual people, groups, whatnot. But if you are keeping the foundation the same, it's never going to be absorbed, because the system is still built on a faulty foundation. So it's just like building any building. You're not, if you build something on a faulty foundation, it doesn't matter how much wallpaper, paint, doesn't matter how much different sheetrock, different structural, boards, walls you put up on top of that foundation. At the end of the day, you can wipe that whole upper part totally out. If you keep that same foundation that's faulty and start trying to build on that same foundation, you're still going to have a problem. And that is the issue with Adventism. Is I see the difference between me and Ty here, and if I could speak to him, I know we would still disagree because he's all about Ellen White. The problem is I don't see Adventism built on the scriptures. They're not built on the word of God alone, Christ alone. They're built on Ellen White.
Yep.
If your foundation is Ellen White and the great controversy worldview, and then you're trying to bring the real gospel and you're trying to amalgamate these two things together, it doesn't work. You're trying to mix light and darkness. You're trying to take truth and confusion and try to create and meld this. Oh, let's just take the best of both worlds. We can keep our precious prophet and we can have the gospel too. And it'll all just be one big happy family. And we'll start seeing a major difference in our church system. No, because the building itself, the institution itself is built on a faulty, breaking, sinking foundation. Until you get rid of the faulty foundation and rebuild and start with a fresh foundation built on the word of God alone, a solid rock of Jesus Christ, that's the only way it's going to work. That means getting rid of Ellen. But see, what he's about to do, and we're not even going to watch this full video, he literally spends the whole second half of this video trying to prove that we need the gospel by not sharing hardly any actual biblical text, but it's just one Ellen White quote after another. Ellen White said this, trying to somehow prove that we need the gospel through Ellen White, because she's the crutch that the Adventist church needs to continue going through. Why? Because that is the system. If you re-engineer and go backwards in the system, you're going to go all the way back to Ellen White. Ellen White is what this church was built on. Ellen White is what this church functions on. You remove her from the equation, these Adventists will lose their mind. They don't know what to do because she is the Adventist church. Without her, there is no Adventist church.
Yeah, spot on. All right, let me get this.
Able to get that graphic?
Yep, let me get this. Give me 1 second.
So there's four. There's 2 images and 2 videos, and they're like back to back. I just wanted to show you this. So obviously, Ty says here, there has to be a revolution. I just found it interesting that when you look up general Google definition of revolution, it means a forcible overthrow of a government or social order in favor of a new system. I found that interesting because obviously the vast majority of Adventist pastors, probably and especially the very ultra-conservative Adventist ministries, would disagree with this word, because when you're thinking about the concept of revolution, it is exactly that. We're going to try to forcibly go in, shake this place up, and hope for a different outcome. We're gonna start a revolution. Well, that's not necessarily a positive thing. You're fighting against yourself to try to create something new. And I find it interesting, by the way, many people don't realize this. Some people are going to say it's just a coincidence. I don't think it's a coincidence that just 2 days after this video of Ty Gibson was posted and began circulating, just 2 days after, Mark Finley releases a video, and guess what the title of his video was? Is last generation theology biblical? And that's been circulating. The response, I believe, to Ty Gibson was, we've got to let people know that our system is fine, what we believe is good, what we believe is the truth. But Ty is saying we don't have the gospel. The last generation theology people, which by the way is probably the majority of Adventism, in some way, form, or fashion, there in some glimpses or shades of last generation theology is in nearly every Seventh-day Adventist theological framework. To do what Ty is suggesting means getting rid of last generation theology, which means ultimately getting rid of Ellen White, because that's where it's rooted in. Which, by the way, he's kind of shooting himself in the foot by trying to say we need the gospel and trying to promote the gospel by using Ellen White to say we need more of the gospel. We need more of Christ. But go to this next graphic. I want to show you this. I just had AI to make this. And to me, this is it. So Jesus says a house built on sand, it's not going to stand. You have to build it on a rock. So now go to the next graphic. This is Adventism. This is Adventism's foundation.
Yep.
It's built on sand. Its foundation is the great controversy worldview of Ellen White. And of course, Every Adventist is going to look at this graphic and hear what I'm saying, because I've heard them say it to me a million times. No, you're wrong. That's not what we believe. We believe in the Bible. We're gospel people, Bible gospel people. We're all about Jesus Christ is our rock. Jesus Christ is our foundation. No, it's not.
No,
This image properly depicts what Adventism is. Now, when you do this is what's happening to Adventism. What Ty is trying to show here, I don't know if you can click to the next graphic, if it'll actually show the video, if it'll actually play it. This is it. This is what is slowly happening to Seventh-day Adventism. It's going to eventually become non-existent. Why? It's built on sand. It was not built on a foundation on the solid rock of Christ and his word. It's built on a great controversy worldview that is starting to show its holes. People are starting to figure it out. People are going to the back of the house. They're opening that dark closet, shady, dark area of the home, and they're starting to realize, wait a second, what is this about our history? Why did this happen? Why did we reject? Nobody talks about this part. Nobody talks about this. Why are we having these issues? Why is everyone arguing with each other? Why is there so much confusion? Why is there no unity? It's because the system is failing. It's not meant to last. It's built on sand.
Yeah.
Now go to the next graphic.
Yeah, let me just say this, Ryan, real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
You can't just, again, get your head out of the sand. You can't be an ostrich and just say pretend everything's all right. And you can't claim, well, we're not built on sand because Ellen White is equivalent to, you can't reverse engineer this whole thing. You can't say, no, it's built on the Bible, but then we have to filter it through Ellen because we believe that Ellen actually doesn't get anything wrong. She caught her visions from God. You can't, if you're saying that, it's not built on the Bible, friends.
Yeah.
It's built on Ellen White. Okay. The only way it's not built on Ellen White is if you allow yourself to take it out from the foundation. Yeah. Remove it. Tell yourself it's okay. It's okay to disagree with her.
Yeah.
That's removing it from the foundation.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here's the next graphic that you got here.
Yeah. This next graphic is representative of what I believe to be a more accurate biblical understanding of what the church is supposed to be built on. Yeah. The Word of God, the Holy Bible, that is built on the rock of Christ. It has stood the test of time. It is immovable because Christ is immovable. And though the wind and the waves and everything may go, you go to the next little graph, a little video that kind of just puts it in perspective here. And that is, no matter what beats against it, no matter what the storms may come against it, when you put your foundation in the Word of God alone, the gospel of Jesus Christ, the rock of salvation in Christ and Christ alone, right, you can't fail. The wind's going to come. You're going to go through some stuff. You're going to deal with some stuff, but you're going to outlast it. Like many of these other churches who, yes, have problems, they've outlasted it for many, many years because most of them understand the gospel. Most of them are upholding the truth as foundation in God's word, versus the Adventist system is not. It's built on something that's sinking and dying. That's right. And so that's all I want to share with that for right now. But I just wanted to say, based on what he just said and what he's going to be saying in a few minutes, I think the major difference between me and Ty, and if I could talk to Ty Gibson, I'd say, bro, I definitely agree with your conclusion of the gospel. We need more of the gospel in Christ. But the problem is that, man, you're still trying to hold on to the cancer that's taking down this church. Mm-hmm. The fault is with Ellen White. If you change all this stuff he's been talking about in this video that has led us to this point, how do you think we got here?
Nope.
We got here because of Ellen. We got here because of her contradicting, just totally bipolar statements where one day she wakes up and she's so gospel oriented. Oh my goodness, I love Jesus and we should put Jesus first and make Jesus the center of your life and the Bible alone. And then the next day the lady wakes up and it's all about, if you don't keep the commandments and we're going to be tested by the commandments. And if you're not perfect and you're not sinless and all of these things are going to come up in judgment. And if you're not perfectly and spotless, and it's totally counter to what you find in the gospel of Jesus Christ. This lady was so wishy-washy. But what happens is your Ty Gibsons and your David Astricks and all the other guys who I love and respect dearly, they go and they cherry pick the things that they want to represent what they believe to be the true gospel in Ellen White's writings, but they leave out all of the other stuff that totally contradicts that.
Yep.
It's a system of confusion. And that's why Adventism is at the brittle breaking point that it is. And it's sinking fast with no generational future whatsoever. 4% barely hanging on to their young people, because you know what? These younger generations, they may not, you say they're not as smart, but you know what? They're the smart ones. They're the ones that's figuring out that, you know what? There's no love here. There's no hope here. There's no real gospel here. There's no Christ here. When you spend enough time in Seventh-day Adventism, you find strife, you find confusion, you find backbiting, you find one group preaching this, another group preaching that. It's just a total cesspool of confusion, and young people don't want to deal with that. They can't condemn their music, condemn what they watch, condemn what they read, condemn what they wear. It's a total works-based approach to salvation, and they're not having it. And so,
it's legalism, and that's because
it is
the framework. Again, if one is honest, was studying the roots of Adventism, and again, this might not be your Adventism. This might not be your understanding of it. That's fine. I'll give that to you. Okay, but if you study the foundation, the history, the things that were being dealt with and wrestled with in the early movement of the Advent church, you will find that the doctrines that became important constructed a framework of works-based. And it's not, I get it. Yes, we all know what, no, Mike, the Adventist church believes in the gospel, like, by faith through grace, like we get it, like that. Yeah. But they're more of a covenantal nomism. Yeah, you get in the way Protestants understand it. You get in that way. But you're going to see that what Ellen taught was that you must remain true to the law. If you get in by Christ's redemptive work, great. But the only way you stay in is you have to perfectly reflect the law, the same law that's in heaven, that beautiful Decalogue that Adventists like to idolize.
Yeah.
And they misconstrue, they conflate, and again, this is built on a different foundation. That's the problem.
It is. Mike, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Is it possible to do a part 2 on this?
Yeah.
Can we do a part 2 on this? There's so much on this subject, so much on this particular topic that I would love to share. I feel like if we keep going, we're going to leave out a lot.
Yeah.
At the same time, I'm thinking in a part 2, we can put in what it is we really want to cover in this, because in the second half of this, which we've kind of already over the halfway point here, but in the clips that we have left of him, and the stuff that we want to share in terms of showing evidence for why we believe what we believe on this issue, I think it would be better suited in a part 2. I don't know. I don't want to. This is your program. I don't want to crash your deal here. I'm just thinking if we keep at this, we're going to be on here another probably 2 hours. And I'm looking at this thinking a part 2 would probably be better for everyone.
Yeah.
And I'm excited about it because I have some slides, and I also know Mike has some information too that we want to share to back up what we're saying, because a lot of people are saying, okay, you're saying that Ellen White's the issue, and I'm not really buying it. I don't think that that's the case. What Ty is going to go into in this second part is he's going into a ton of history. He's going to go from 1844 all the way up and try to prove to you that, you know what, Ellen White's been telling this for years. Ellen White tried to start telling us all the way back as soon as 1882 that we're not gospel-centric, that we're not gospel-focused. Ellen White's been trying to sound the alarm for years, but you know what? The beast kind of got out of control, and they shoved her out, and they shoved out the truth, and it's just kind of taken on a thing of its own, and it's we've turned into this beast of legalism and rules and regulations and laws, but no Jesus and no gospel. When in reality, when you look at the evidence, you'll see that though Ellen White made her gospel statements, okay, though she did make those statements, she equally made a lot of statements in even the latter part of her life that totally contradicted the biblical gospel.
Yeah.
And I personally think, Mike, this deserves a part 2. I don't know when we could do this part 2. I'm open and game to do it anytime you're open to do it. Yeah. I personally think a part 2 would really, really bring to reality, because so far we've responded kind of theoretically to some of the things that's been said. But when you back this up with evidence, actual references and quotes, and show the primary sources of why this is what it is, it opens up a whole nother world of understanding as to why we're talking the way we are.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah. No, I love that idea. I've already got some in the chat saying they would love a part 2. I think that my ask for those that are watching, and by the way, thank you guys for hanging out with us for almost 2 hours here. We've gotten up to about 150, 160, 170 at one point. My ask is that if all of you would watch the video through again, not necessarily our video. I mean, you're welcome to, but the video where Ty is we're going to miss. There's a section in there that we're not going to go through the 30, 40 minutes that he does his entire presentation of what he claims to be the missing link that Ryan is talking about. But I want you to understand where his conclusion is if you watch that. And that is, he believes that Ellen's always been right. Yeah. Okay. So again, remember, building it on what foundation? What's the system? Okay. And I'm using Ty's exact psychological argument. Okay. Because he loves psychology. He loves to use those, philosophical, psychological arguments. If that's the case, then you got to keep Ellen. Yeah. And if you keep Ellen, then you got to deal with all of Ellen's problems. That's right. And Ellen, out of anyone in the history, there's a lot of crazy stuff in the history of Adventism, but predominantly Ellen has the worst stuff. She and again, because the church has placed her in a certain position, and it's still in the 28 fundamentals. Okay. You cannot be baptized in the Adventist church and say, I don't agree with Ellen White. It's there. Okay. And so I understand what Ty is doing, but he's missing his entire logical argument. Right. Because you keep Ellen. Yeah. And you keep the same foundation. That's it. And you're going to end up with the same issues down the road.
And what I'm excited about doing the part 2, Mike, and I think this is something that you and I can develop a little better, because as I'm talking through this with you, there are certain historical elements that's coming to my mind that obviously he does not talk about in his presentation. He leaves it out. I would like to dive a little deeper into some of these historical elements. For instance, he puts up a chart, and you're going to see this in the program. If you go back, I think we have that chart, the little graphic that shows all the dates that he walks through. And I know if Ty Gibson was here, he'd probably say, look, guys, there's a whole lot more I would have loved to have talked about, but I didn't have enough time, and I had to leave out some stuff. I get it. But nonetheless, when I look at that chart of dates that he uses in the video, there's significant dates left out that totally shaped the trajectory of Adventism in such a way that was irreversible, in my opinion. For instance, in this chart here, where's 1919? You don't see 1919 mentioned here.
Nope.
Where's 1957? Questions on doctrine debacle. Walter Martin. You don't see that on there.
No.
The whole M.L. Andreasen back and forth junk that happened. That was huge. And what's going to bring about in 1979, 1980 with Desmond Ford, with the whole Glacier View thing, these are significant historical events that no Adventist wants to talk about. In fact, the vast majority of Adventists don't even know about. Yeah. But when he's walking you through this history, trying look, Ellen White, in 1883 and 1884 and then 1888, and he's walking you through trying to show you like, Ellen White tried to tell us. No, because there were some significant things that not only happened during her lifetime, but hugely significant things that happened after her lifetime in the Adventist church that totally shaped this system that he's talking about in such a way that the only way to get out of it and to implement that gospel plan that he's talking about is you have to deal with the cancer. And the cancer is in stage 4, bro. And I'm going to tell you what it is. It makes much this sense. Could you imagine someone who has lung cancer? They don't want to let go of their cigarettes, but they're like, you know what? If I just eat more onions, kale, broccoli, and cauliflower, I'll get rid of this cancer. So they don't want to get rid of the cigarettes that's caused the cancer, but they think that if they implement more veggies into their diet, the cancer will disappear. No. You got to get rid of you got to get rid of the cigarettes if you're going to ever even have hopes of dealing with this cancer. In this case, I see Ellen White as that horrible cancer that the church has adopted, their precious spirit of prophecy, when really at the end of the day, that's blasphemous to even say that. She's not the spirit of prophecy. She's not even in the realm. She's not even in the same stratosphere as the spirit of prophecy. Only Jesus Christ and the Holy Spirit delivering the gospel. That is the spirit of prophecy, not Ellen White. But yet she is the system failure that Adventism is having. And this is where I wish that intelligent men like David Ashrick and Ty Gibson, whom I believe they understand the gospel. I really do. I believe these guys understand the gospel. The problem is they're trying to say, well, I know the gospel. I have the gospel and I want to share the gospel, but I want to do it through the lens of Ellen White. That doesn't work.
Nope.
Because it creates system failure problems. You run into that closet door that you don't want anyone to open, because if they do, they're going to find things that contradicts what you're saying and what you're trying to promote.
And if you do that, you run the sincere risk that when people start studying, they're going to start realizing you're lying to them. Because if you interpret Ellen White in a certain way to say certain things that are Adventist today, then you're going to discover. And this is where I was like, wait a second, there's too much cognitive dissonance here. I get that you think that this quote says what it says, but why is it that she's making a comment over here that's entirely different?
Yeah.
And you can't, when someone makes exactly, differing statements, you cannot, it's lying for you to say, that she had the truth in some way, and that she, she was human and she was growing in her understanding. No.
And the fail-safe response from many of these major promoters of Ellen White and defenders of Ellen White, when they hear me and you and others bringing up these contradictory statements, there's only so many times that you can say, well, you're just not understanding. You're not fully understanding the context of what she's trying to say. You're skipping out on content. You're not really fully understanding there's only so many times you can say that before there's a pattern that emerges, and you start to realize and go, wait a second. This lady has contradicted herself so many times, and not just on small subjects. We're not talking about little numbers here and there. We're not talking about like, oh, over here she said there was 23 people in the room, and over here she said there was 74. We're not talking about little discrepancies of things like that. We're talking about major doctrinal, major gospel-related, salvational-related subjects. And so, man, I would love to do a part 2 to dive deeper into not just those clips that we've left out here, but dive deeper into that history that he's going to leave out. Because at the end of the day, man, as it says here, I don't think the current system of Adventism can be reformed. Ty Gibson and all of the guys can tell you that. I love these brothers. I respect them. I would strongly disagree with them and say this cannot, there's no saving this. The best thing you can do is go get the backhoe and start ripping that crap up. And the only way you're going to salvage anything, you're going to have some casualties in the process. I mean, because let's be honest, there's a lot of people in the Adventist church that their idol is Ellen White. Their idol is their spirit of prophecy. And in trying to rip up that foundation and establish one on the rock of Christ, there's going to be there's going to be people they're so psychologically wrapped up in, and they can't imagine life without Ellen White. There's going to be numbers to fall off on the wayside. You want to talk about a shaking? That would be a proper shaking. Not that we want to just leave people or just get rid of people, but that's inevitably going to happen, because when someone is so inebriated and drunk on the same Kool-Aid over and over and over and over and over and over for decade after decade after decade, and then you come along and say, hey, the Kool-Aid's bad.
Yeah.
You got to stop it. But
Yeah.
they're addicted to it. They can't imagine life without it. We got to get to a point where we realize you got to rip that stuff up, man. You got to start with the Bible alone, and stop looking and peering through this great controversy worldview lens, because that's how you're interpreting everything that's very falsely bent and flawed from a Ellen White perspective, and not necessarily a deeply exegetical, biblical, hermeneutical perspective.
Yeah. 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 As I was listening to you, I had a little bit of a moment, in that, we think of the Apostle Paul, who many of us really don't understand the horrible person he was prior to having his experience on the Damascus Road, of which he thought he was doing right. Okay, as Saul, persecuting what we see as the church. Okay, he truly believed he was right.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, and friends, being sincere doesn't make you right.
Yeah.
Saying you're right, or saying, none of that makes you right. And it isn't really about you, me. It isn't about being right. I see people in the chat, friends, stop trying to be right. It's about Jesus. Like the actual moment that Saul became Paul, the most influential author in the New Testament, was because he has an experience with Jesus.
A radical encounter with Jesus.
He has an experience with the prophet.
That's right.
That's the only prophet we need. It is the priest king, Jesus Christ.
Amen.
It's not after, he had an interaction with Ellen White. He read Ellen White's great controversy. It's such he read Ellen White's Steps to Christ. No, you need a lesser light to shine on the great. No, friends, you have been sold a load of crap.
I've never used a flashlight to try to see the sun.
You don't need a lesser light. Yeah. You need Jesus Christ. He is the light of the world.
Yeah.
That's what you need.
That's right. Amen. Amen, brother. Part 2.
Sounds good, friends.
Part 2.
Hey, do me a favor. If you appreciate and enjoyed this evening, even if maybe you didn't agree with everything, that's okay. We don't need to be right. We don't need you to think we're always right. Okay. Do me a favor, hit the like, share, all that stuff. Scan the code, by the way, if you haven't yet. Scan that code, because what that's going to do is it's going to give you all the places that you can get additional ways to connect with my ministry, with the Thinking Cup. If you want to plug into the Discord channel, we've got about 120 people that talk about all things theology. And guess what? We don't all agree. And that's okay. It's all right. We're all united in Christ. If you do want to support the ministry, you'll find ways of doing that as well. I appreciate you all tons. We will schedule a part 2. I do want to say this before I leave, though. Make sure that you subscribe to the channel, because I've got next week, we've got Dr. Jerry Gladson coming on, who is a former Adventist, a scholar who sat on the Biblical Institute. We are going to be talking all things Daniel. All things Daniel. Okay. Specifically chapter 8, which is like the hinge of the investigative judgment. So do join us then, and then we'll have soon after we'll have a part 2 to this. Ryan, thank you so much for your time today.
Such a blast, bro. I can't wait for part 2. And I think we're going to not be doing a disservice, but a great service to ourselves and to our listeners in this part 2, because once they put the part 1 and part 2 together, I think there's going to be a great big picture portrayed and put up that's going to be unavoidable, to be able to see how clear of the situation this is in terms of where Adventism's heading and the only way that works, which is Jesus and the gospel.
That's right.
So, amen.
That's right. All right, friends. We'll see you next time. Ryan, thank you so much.
God bless you guys. Thank you for having me.
God bless.
Bye-bye.